Welcome to the new episode of All That Jazz. I'm your host, Matjaz, and I have with me a very special guest, Janeta Jane. And she's a healer, writer, and a kinesiologist. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matjaz.
There you go. Pretty good.
Better.
uh, um, I once said the unfortunate because I was a bit younger and naive, and I was pushing on this girl my narrative that kinesiologist isn't that somebody that muscle tests? Because that was my applied kinesiology was my version of kinesiology, but she corrected me. So, what is kinesiology then?
Kinesiology is really the study, like an exercise physiologist. So it's the study of the human body in motion, and really how to make the body work better, how to make it more athletic, how to help it to heal from injuries, how to get stronger, healthier, eat better, just basically make your body work better. So it's like a more science-based physical education.
Okay, so let's say if I had like let's say I had a knee problem and I had pain and I didn't know why. So, what would be the first thing you would do?
I would usually I start looking at people's posture to start. I get them to stand up, get
Oh
them
yeah.
to walk a little bit. I check their gait, especially if it's something going on with the knees.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, just from watching the way they hold themselves, the way they move, I can tell where they're strong, where they're weak, where they're probably having some problems, and then looking at the structure of their legs. Often, when there's a knee problem going on, the knees aren't tracking straight, or one leg is more built than the other because there's been a previous injury. Or there's an overcompensation, there's more movement to one side than the other. And so we start picking up on all these subtle factors before we start treatment. And then it would be, depending on the problem, it would be trying to figure out what's going on and then getting them stronger around the joint. So
Right.
it's muscles around the joint that really take the stress off the joint and make it stronger. So each injury depends. Sometimes it's just like stay off your leg or you're overtraining or there's a million things that it can be.
Yeah.
But we
And
do try to get people active as soon as possible.
right. Well, what tends to happen is with people that have injuries, they tend to avoid using a certain leg, and then they use the other leg more to like
Absolutely.
overcompensate, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
does kinesiology then try to like see does it can it measure like the where the things are going wrong?
Yeah, when they get into, but even when you get into the higher levels of orthopedic doctors and sports medicine doctors and stuff, they still tend to do the hands-on, watching the walk, looking at the body, the same kind of stuff we have. Of course, when you get into the higher levels of athletics, then they have a lot more machinery to test movement and angles, and they take it down to the you know certain small degrees, and they work from there. But for most of us, we're just watching how people move, um, and where they're stronger, where they're weaker. And
Mm-hmm.
then we really deal with the body as a whole too. It's not just strengthening the muscles around the knee. It could be that their whole core is weak and that's setting everything else off. So it's a full body thing. And actually the whole kinesiology, like when I work with clients, I look at everything. That's why I say I'm also a healer, because I will take someone, I'll find out what's going on for them. And often things are manifesting on a physical plane, but 9 times out of 10, it's not just physical. It's usually emotional, psychological, and then I also look at, what's going on for you intellectually, what's going on for you socially,
Mm-hmm.
what's going on for you and nutritionally and all these other areas. And it all builds up to create a wheel of wellness, a spectrum. And then I can see, oh, wow, you've got nothing going on in this area, like what are we going to do about this? And so, and that's what makes people healthier, because usually when their body breaks down, it's at the end game. It's when, you know, they've been through a divorce and then their child commits suicide and their whole body falls apart and they think it's the body, but it's been a whole plethora of major stressors in their lives that they may not have dealt with effectively. They might not have grieved, and essentially their body just starts to break down. So the
Mm.
body is an amazing instrument for detailing what's going on in someone's life. It
Right.
doesn't lie.
So the body is basically the last stand. Like if you have issues socially or financially or whatever, and you're worrying about stuff, then eventually it's gonna show itself in the physical body one way or another.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Interesting. How did you get into the spiritual healing? Because you said you're a healer.
Yeah. I had a near death experience as a
Wow.
child. And I remember always being told when I grew up that I almost died and that I'd been through this experience. And I kind of remembered this experience where I was in a garden and with Jesus talking. And I wasn't sure if it was real, if it was a dream. But when I grew up, I just had this memory. And then when I went to Peru and did a big ayahuasca retreat to help me with depression, because I had struggled with depression for decades, from the time I was a child, I relived a number of experiences under the influence of ayahuasca that I'd had. And one of these experiences was my near death experience, and it was profound. And this time I remembered everything because I was witnessing the child and what happened to her. And then this talk with Jesus in this beautiful garden. As well as re-witnessing a lot of trauma from my childhood, which was the root of the depression that I had struggled with and
Mm.
was eventually able to break free from depression. I've never struggled with depression since then.
Wow. So how did I'm always interested about near death experience, and I feel like I always kind of, ever since I heard about it, I felt like almost like I wanted to have it, because it's like such a certainty that you get that there is going to be a life after death. And I feel like only like less than 0.1% of people in the, or probably less than that, get to experience the near death experience. So it's interesting. So
Don't
how,
even know if it's that rare. I think actually it would be interesting to take a poll on that, but it's it is rare. It is rare. I've met a number of people that have had a similar experience, and I've also researched it a little bit since the experience I had in Peru. And I went and talked to my parents, my family, and said, you know, do you think I actually died? And because I have this complete memory, and they said, yeah, you know, you were very close. We thought we had lost you. And I was just like, wow, you know, it was the most beautiful experience. I went from being in a state of incredible pain, like just excruciating. I had had the red measles and had been bleeding internally. And I had a temperature of about 107 or something unheard of. And they didn't want to take me at a couple of hospitals because I was infectious. And my mother was just crying and, you know, like really getting into it with the doctors, you know, because my mom's a very strong woman. And, you know, you've got to take her, she's going to die. And so they ended up taking me in this one hospital. And then I remember being in the waiting room, or all of a sudden they rushed me into this operating room. And my mom was kind of outside knocking on the door at one point, because I don't know what, I can't quite remember what alerted, or the doctors, she came in. I think that's what it was. She came in because I'd been in there quite a long time. And the doctors made her leave and told her that they were trying to get me to breathe. And she said, trying to get her to breathe. And um, and so anyway, they made her leave and locked the door. And then after that, I remember rising up above my body. And before I even rose up above my body, I saw my power animal, a horse. Like when I was a kid, a little kid, I always loved horses. And I had this one horse that I would ride, just pretend, right? At least to everybody else, it was pretend. To me, it was my real horse. And he's called Star. And I would get on this horse and I'd ride him in the woods and I'd ride him around my backyard. I loved this horse, and I saw this horse above me. And normally, I would call the horse to me when I was lonely, and I would call the horse to me when I needed companionship. But this time, he was there waiting, which was unusual. And I just floated right up to him, and we just left the hospital, and all the birds were singing and trilling and whistling, and dusk was setting, and it was the most incredible evening as we rose above the hospital. And I could still see my family and what they were doing, and that they were crying. Everybody was really upset. And I was just so overcome with peace that even though I knew they were full of grief, I was just so okay with everything. I was detached from their pain. And yet at the same time, I felt more love for them than I ever had. And I rose above the hospital. I was just in absolute bliss. Never felt so happy, never felt so free or peaceful. And then as we're rising up, all the birds started rising up together, and it was almost like we were in one flock. The sounds of their singing, of the nature, the sun, the stars coming out, and then this white light that we're flying up to. It was so beautiful, so ethereal. And then I went into this tunnel, and I started seeing things from my past. And then I came out of this tunnel into this beautiful garden. And it was the most exquisite garden I'd ever seen. And I'm healthy now. Like I'm healthy, and I loved gymnastics. So I'm starting to do cartwheels and somersaults on these beautiful lawns, wisteria and roses and all these beautiful flowers around. And then I see this person coming towards me in white robes, and it turned out to be Jesus. And his energy was so beautiful. It was just the most beautiful thing. I was raised Catholic, so Jesus was someone that I always cared about as a child.
How did you know there was Jesus though? Just curious.
From just he just looked like the pictures I'd seen, and he was wearing the long white robes and sandals like you wouldn't see in where I had grown up.
Right.
I'd never seen anyone dressed like that. I wasn't in the Middle East, or in a monastery or something where people would maybe dress somewhat similar to that. But this was really, and I said, Jesus? And he said, hello, sweetheart. Excuse me, I'll just get some water. And so we had this incredible talk.
Wow. Hello, sweetheart. That's not what I was expecting, but interesting. Obviously, he was talking to you in English because you understand only English, I assume. So he has to communicate in that way. But it wasn't telepathic. It was audible.
No, it's telepathic.
Okay.
I heard it. Everything was, once I passed over, everything became telepathic. Even my talking to the star back and forth had always been telepathic, with this power animal. But with Jesus, it was telepathic. And the first thing he said was, hello, sweetheart. And then we sat and we talked about the meaning of life a little, I asked him questions and he responded. And it was so peaceful. It was really peaceful. At one point, he had put his arms out for me. And I went to sit in his arms, and I remembered thinking, oh, does he have a penis? Like, this is crazy for a little kid to be thinking.
Okay.
Abused by my grandfather. And so I was always afraid of men.
Oh,
And
this was after you were abused, right?
yeah. And so and instantly, as soon as I thought that, I knew he was safe. Like, I was just overcome with this feeling of safety. No, it's okay. It's not, he's not like that. I'm safe. And I just melted into his arms. Like, it felt like so welcoming, like I was home for the first time in my life.
Hmm.
And after a beautiful discussion about love and peace, and I had grown up feeling very guilty, and he just helped me to see things that were not really in the Bible. Like, I thought I was, I was going to hell. I thought, um, and he had basically he helped me to see life in a more metaphysical way
Right.
than biblical way, and it was really beautiful. It was really
I
affirming.
let's go back a bit. What did he say about the meaning of life? I'm really curious.
He had said that I had asked about why there was so much fighting, and
Right.
why people were so upset. And he basically said that people had lost the rhythm of nature, their true selves, and they had found a path based on trying to get approval from others rather than from being real. And they had lost the spirit of generosity and of love, which was that people had experienced trauma and were seeking power, that they were always seeking power, and that instead of seeking to follow their soul,
Hmm.
and that people were avoiding going into their pain so that they would project it and act out against others, um, and hurt others, and that it was a perpetuating cycle of people not healing and being angry and then attacking others, um, and that the key was to heal ourselves while we're still on earth, and by doing so, that's how we rise in power
Did he mean spiritually heal ourselves, like through love,
spiritually.
like loving
Through
ourselves rather
going
than
right into our pain, not avoiding it, feeling it, sitting with it, breathing into it, being with it. And he just held me and he said, with this pain with your grandfather, he he too had had that pain. And he opened up a window in which I was able to see my grandfather being abused when he was a little boy in World War I on the ships. Um, as a ship hand. He was just like a little kid put on there to help grab this and that, 6, 7 years old, 8 years old. Um, and he was pulled into broom closets and abused and went through horrible stuff over and over again. So nobody comes to pedophilia and those kind of issues without experiencing a lot of trauma. And because of the trauma, they feel so powerless. So when they are abused, they recapture the I mean, I was a child. He didn't go into it in so much detail as what I'm saying right now.
right.
He showed me his pain. And as soon as I saw my grandfather in such pain and struggling so awfully, and saw him as a child, my heart just filled with compassion and something melted inside, and I felt sad for him. And I realized he was really sick. He was trying to I didn't quite understand it at the time. And since then, I've made it a point to try to understand it more. And I believe that people that do that are so traumatized, they're just seeking to destroy something, to unleash this drive for power that's within them, this need, this unquenchable thirst for power because of their own trauma.
Hmm.
So unless they go into it and heal it, they may continue this cycle of abuse in one way or another.
I want to touch upon also, you said that there was different, what he was saying to you was different than the Bible. And the first thing that comes to my mind is kind of like the thing I find interesting, the Dante's levels of hell and levels of the purgatory and levels of heaven. So did he talk about that? Is there any truth to that, to Dante's
I
work?
believe that, yeah. He basically said that we create our reality, and that if we believe we deserve hell and we're going to hell, we could actually see a hell-like creation, because we are creating and projecting our reality through dream-like holographic states all the time, and it's no different after death. And so we can create that. We would not stay there for eternity or that kind of a thing. But definitely, if somebody really believes in hell and they die or they have a near death experience, they could end up in hell
Because,
and actually experience that.
Timothy McVeigh famously said that I know I'm going to hell, but I'm gonna meet a lot of friends there. That's what he said, apparently. So I don't.
Well, I'm sure that there's a lot of people that would, I mean, because also I believe we create our reality. We could certainly do that as well and see people there. And that's also kind of humorous, like those of us that have lived well have taken risks and probably done some crazy things. And I believe that that's actually to live in a way where you live really fully and robustly. You take some risks. You might end up hurting yourself more than the person who doesn't, but you live fully and richly. And the worst things that I've ever done have actually made me a better person and made me more pure in the long run. So there's something to be learned from contrast, by
Right.
doing something awful and experiencing it, we're going to want to move in towards the light more.
Yeah, I think ultimately that's what we hear. We make mistakes, we learn, and hopefully we grow spiritually, because I think that's probably the primary mission. Maybe not for all people. I think it's a choice, but ideally we grow spiritually, right?
Absolutely. Getting back to the heaven or hell, I remember Jesus had said that we create heaven or hell with our thoughts. And that if while we're even alive on earth, we create heaven or hell with our thoughts. And this I've found to be very true in my life, and why meditation is so important, to learn to master the thoughts and control the thoughts. Because the more you meditate, you can get to a place where the only thoughts that arise are pretty much the ones to direct you with what you need to do in your day next, and you're freed of the obsessive kind of thinking, and the self-deprecating thoughts, and the obsessive nature of our monkey minds. So yeah, that's very true, because we can live in the same earth, and some of us will experience the most incredible life. Like, I love my life. I have so much peace and deep contentment. My life is very simple now. It's become more simple over the years, and more beautiful, like truly beautiful. And so for me, I believe that to be very true. I mean, I was a child at the time, so a lot of the conversation with Jesus was quite simple, but it was very clear, and he helped me to see things. And then he helped me to. I didn't want to go back. he asked me if I would go back. And I said, no, I don't want to. I want to stay here with you.
Of course, of
And
course.
yeah, and he helped me to see my family. Like he would open a window, he would go like this, and I would see into the hospital, you know. And that's what he did when he went like this, and he opened this window into my grandfather being abused. And he just sitting here in this garden with him beside a beautiful river. It was so healing. And I just got to the point where he had said that my pain, that I would heal it, and my pain would help others to heal the same pain. And that's why we're here, to
Right.
love each other and help each other.
So is that why you decided to do something with physical recovery and stuff like kinesiology and then healing?
Yeah, yes. Well, actually, yeah, I was flight attendant for 10 years. So I flew all
Wow.
over the world and would go in ashrams and temples, and most of the crew would be going out partying and drinking every night. And I kept some distance from them because I too, in those years, was still dealing with a lot of personal stuff and addictive tendencies, and I just did not want to get into the whole drinking thing and that kind of the party life that was very much a part of the scenario as flight crew back in those days. Probably still is, actually. Well, no, not with COVID, but it would have. So after I quit flying, I went back to school and I majored in psychology at first. And because I wanted to heal the world, because I wanted to heal myself, and so there was this drive to learn more, to understand more, to heal myself. That was my primary drive in going back to school. But I was also very athletic and I loved exercise. And so I started studying kinesiology. And then at a certain point, we were supposed to do informational interviews to figure out what we were going to major in. And when I talked to the kinesiologists, they said their clients felt better from the very first session. Their mood went up, they were happier, they started losing weight, getting slimmer, feeling more energized, having a better outlook.
Hmm.
Whereas sometimes the psychologist would say, well, often people get a little more depressed because they start talking about the hard stuff, and they just open up a door and then your session is over and they got to leave. And it's not always so rosy. Sometimes they take their lives. And so they,
Wow.
after talking to a number of psychologists, I went, whoa, this is really important to think about. And so I ended up going down the kinesiology area instead, but still have always studied about. I have a number of certificates behind me in different types of healing modalities, and doing internal family systems, parts work, completion process, a whole bunch of different Reiki, pranic healing. Yeah, I have lots of different things.
I just want to also, because I'm so curious about this, about the differences between the Bible and what Jesus said. Is there anything else that you recall that you could shine a light on? What was the difference? Some other differences between the Bible and what Jesus in your.
Well, I said to Jesus that I thought I was going to hell
Hmm.
because of what I had done. Like I'd lied, I had stolen things, and because of the Ten Commandments and the way it was dictated, I thought I was going to hell. And he said, no, that it's not, so that we learn from our mistakes, and that we're meant to learn from our mistakes, and that it feels better in your soul if you don't do those things. It'll feel better in your heart. You'll have more peace and contentment. That will make you happier. But it's not to judge you. God does not judge. This was a big thing he said. God does not judge. God does not judge anything. And that was really huge for me because in the Bible, the fear of God, judgment of God is, especially in the Old Testament, is all
Yeah.
over, right? And most Christians, especially fundamentalist Christians, have a fear-based mentality. They want their kids to stay virgins till they're married so they don't go to hell. They want, so much control, so much fear. And behind that is not a whole lot of peace, rather than teaching about the power of love and what a gift it is to be a virgin, to share that with someone you love. You want to, really that person to treasure and respect, and, just real open, honest dialogue, not shaming kids into thinking one way or another, because that will backfire.
Yeah, obviously, the religion part of humanity has diluted the message of primary message of Jesus, and we have many different ways. But kind of feel like, in a way, that I don't know if this is a quote from the Bible, but it says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. In that you start to think about your actions, and maybe that, from that sense of, like, you start to think about, if I'm just bad to other people, that this is not gonna bode well for my soul. And that, from that point of view, I think I agree with that, the fear of the world, because the fear of God, because from that from that development point, people are like, otherwise they would do whatever they wanted, which would not be
Yeah.
probably good.
Well, it would be really interesting to see what definition of that word fear, that the Bible was written in Aramaic, I believe, what in Aramaic the translation of the word fear was, because everything's been translated, and fear could have many different definitions depending. Respect, honoring, I would say those are more appropriate words. And because there, another thing that Jesus said is that there is a spark of God within you. That was another thing that I never got from the Bible, even though there is a scripture
Uh,
that
there,
Jesus does say something along those lines.
yeah, something, the kingdom of
In you
God.
too.
The kingdom of God is within you. I think that is,
Yes,
yeah, right.
exactly, exactly. And the kingdom, so that everything can fruit from this. And so those were some of the things he said. So there's a lot. I mean, I think the Bible has so much wisdom. I'm not saying that there's not truth in the Bible. There's certainly, I believe there is. But I think in some ways it's overrated, in that there are some areas that are stressed more than others. And there's a lot of people that follow, that read the Bible, and believe that just because they believe that in Jesus, that they're going to be saved, and they can lead these corrupt lives. And it's salvation begins with self-love, and from self-love springs all the love of everything else. So
Yeah,
I don't see salvation. I don't buy the Christian version of salvation either. I think the Bible's got great wisdom. I love the Tao. Like, for me, of all the different wisdom um, traditions, the book that resonates the most for me is the Tao Te Ching. It is so beautiful. Um, there's actually a Wayne Dyer talk online, a YouTube video with the Tao Te Ching, that it's just 81 verses, simple verses, but they are like the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So some of them are proverbs, things that we use, quotes that we use. Um, yeah, there's so many beautiful, beautiful, beautiful quotes
mm,
um, in the Tao Te Ching, and it's simpler. It's simpler, and it basically mirrors nature and universal patterns, but it takes it into wisdom. Like, it says that you cannot do violence and die a natural death. You cannot be a violent person and die a natural death, and
right.
like a million different things. Um, so yeah, I think there he just gave me a different glance into the meaning of things in the Bible, because I believe there's incredible metaphysical wisdom in the Bible too. Like I've been also a student of A Course in Miracles, and I have learned a lot, and I love the Course in Miracles, and I love the Course of Love. That's another book that was put out
Right.
after the Course in Miracles. But I'm not a person that just follows one thing. I hear something beautiful from a wisdom tradition, and I just take it in like sipping fine wine and feel if it resonates in my heart.
Mm.
And if it doesn't, I just toss it.
Okay.
So
Can I share something? I'll just be a quick
sure.
story. There was a healer of mine that a friend of mine, actually, I should say, and he's a healer, happens to be a healer, and he recommended one time that. By the way, I'm Catholic. My background is also Catholic, but he recommended that I get baptized so that I would wash away some of the, I guess, the debris or whatever I had, stuck emotions or whatever. So I was like, okay. And I knew a Christian friend, and we started meeting. And then I decided to do the baptism in the Scottish Sea in the middle of winter,
Oh,
because that was the time that I was deciding this. I was just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it just in the sea, And it happened to be winter at the time. And when we did it, I don't know if it was the cold or what, but I felt like really renewed. Like I was like, obviously I was baptized as a kid, as a baby, but that's not a choice. So when they presented those arguments to me, it kind of made sense to me that, yeah, you should decide by yourself. So when I did that, I was like, wow. And I could see how depending on your motivation, the way you do it, it can change your trajectory of the soul totally. I totally believe
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. Like there is such power in that. There is power in Christianity. I mean, there's Jesus is incredible power. Like I also had an experience like that where I was rebaptized, and through the Christian way when I was older. And I remember when one of my very close friends down in California said, she used to go to this church, Calvary Chapel, and I should check it out. And
Mm,
and I noticed a lot of times when they would get these great Christian bands and stuff sometimes. Oh, I loved Christian music because for me, had like from very young, I've been in love with God, right? So some of these people would be raising their hands up and kind of dancing and doing kind of groovy stuff. And I was like, wow, this is cool, man. I love this. And so I asked a woman, why do people put their hands up? And she said, well, I believe it's because you're just surrendering in release, like a child raising their arms to God, to a father, to a mother, like, I love you,
yeah.
and it's like a surrender, it's like an honoring. And so and it's also powerful, like you should try it. And so I didn't do it that day. I just watched these people. I was still just kind of doing the looky-loo thing. And then the next time there was this concert, it was just the best music, and they were like Jesus, and in the word Jesus, I went Jesus. I put my hands up, and I just felt these bolts of electricity go through my hands. That just kind of was like, whoa, that was my first experience with the energetics. And that really drew me more to Jesus because of that experience, and even the Christian church for a while. But then over time, some of the things I heard around like gay people being called perverts, and almost like a welcoming of war to finish the world off so that we would all go to the new world kind of thing. I just was like, whoa, this is not for me. And I pulled away from it. And I also went back to university, started studying religious studies, and went into depth with Christianity and history. And I kind of saw some of the background of Christianity, Catholicism, and Islam and whatnot. And I was just like, holy moly, there's some dark stuff going on there.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, Islam especially has some really
mm,
strange history, to say the least. Now,
absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm gonna talk about that maybe with the I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. Um, what about okay? I have to say, for drugs, I've always avoided them. So, but I've heard of this drug, and you mentioned it earlier in the episode, ayahuasca, and I have heard of it, but I don't know what is it, what does it do, and so on.
Sure. Ayahuasca is a plant medicine. An ayahuasquero, the guys that
Hmm.
ceremonies with it would be appalled if you called it a drug.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
they
It's not.
call it a a medicine, or the sacrament. And it is the mixture of the chacruna leaves and the ayahuasca vine, these two plants that grow in the Amazon. And they just cut them up and put them in a pot with boiling water and stir them and stir them. Sometimes they'll put in other herbs or plants as well, but usually it's just those two. And the chacruna has an MAO inhibitor. Um, yeah, and so it allows the DMT from the ayahuasca vine to be absorbed and into the body, whereas normally there's a enzyme in the stomach that breaks down the DMT so that we're not able to experience it. So the chacruna leaves are really important. It is a super powerful journey. Um, the very first time I did it was on the big island of Hawaii in a yoga retreat center, and it was a Santa Dame retreat center. Or no, it was just a yoga retreat center, but it was a Santa Dame journey. And Santa Dame is this Brazilian church that does ayahuasca as its uses ayahuasca as its sacrament, and it's kind of a Christian feel to it. A lot of the songs that they sing have Mary and Jesus and Joseph in them, as well as the word ayahuasca and whatnot too. It's kind of a funny mix of Christianity, and it's a beautiful mix, but it's very different from the Amazonian type uh,
Right.
journey. It's very ceremonial. Everybody's supposed to wear white. Women are often in beautiful white dresses, and it's often held in a beautiful place and somewhere near nature. And they, not always though, sometimes in the cities they're just held in church basements or whatever. Um, and they really get you to dance and sing, and there's a lot of celebration in that regard.
Right.
um, and they explain the whole sacrament that you like. Before I did it, I was with my daughter, who was only 16 at the time. I think just turned 16 too. She was very young, and I had been wanting to do ayahuasca for a few years because I had heard it helped cure depression. And I had looked into it, but you never find it because it's in
Were
South
you
America.
wait? Were you depressed at that point? Kind of depressed.
Yeah, I still struggled with depression at that point. Yeah, and it was worse in the winters. Um, yeah, but it was still coming in and out of my life, definitely. And that's why I was open to ayahuasca, because I was never a person that liked chemicals. Like, I wasn't someone who went through like a lot of doing acid or anything like that. I
Right.
think I was
Same.
a kid, and like I like to feel like I was in control, and I didn't like the feeling
Same.
of not being in control,
Right.
right? So this was totally to heal. And it was beautiful. We would take the sacrament and dance around, do our dancing, and then my daughter and I started feeling it. And then they moved us out into the beautiful courtyard of this yoga retreat center, and it was just the most perfect Hawaiian day. And my daughter and I were like laughing, and everything was funny. And as we started coming off on this ayahuasca, because that's how it felt, everything became super blissful. And I could feel the molecular structure of the atoms of the air touching my hand and where the atoms of the air ended, or joined my hand, that everything was linked. I could actually see this web of life around me, and the way it was all connected.
Wait, was your daughter, did your daughter take it as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh yes, like I researched it for children. They did it in Brazil. We went to a long meeting with all these people a few days before the ceremony too. We started researching it a lot. I was very concerned for my daughter, but she was getting on the wrong path. She was starting to smoke a lot of weed. She was hanging out with kids who were going nowhere. She was skipping out of school. I was a single mom, and
Right.
I had to work nights, 2 nights a week, and I couldn't always keep an eye on her, and I was really worried about her. And she had had a lot of trauma as a kid too, a lot of medical stuff. And her dad and I had split up when she was really young, like before elementary school. So she was really traumatized by that as well. And so I thought it would be really good for her. So we researched it, and she was like so in, like, oh yeah, I do this, I want to do this. I said, sweetheart, it might not be a cakewalk. This is not like smoking a joint with your friends. This is could be really hard. So we researched it, and she was all keen. So we went. Well, we had so much fun for the next 2 or 3 hours. We just laughed and laughed and laughed, and we put these two yoga mats out on the ground of the thing, thinking at first we could do some yoga, but we were both way too gone. We're just lying laughing. Everything was funny. Like there was these guys running around with these streamers of ribbons that were multicolored, and there was and we would just watch them and laugh, and we had a joke about everyone, not in a mean way, but like there's this one guy who was a general. He had just retired from the army or something, and he was a general, and he'd always been in control. You could tell he was the kind of guy who had always been in control and was used to people admiring him. And he was like a bug. He looked like one of those like dead bugs, he wouldn't come out of this super tight position because he couldn't surrender. And we were laughing at this poor guy, and just so many things. We just laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. We had more fun, and like some of the mothers came up to us and said, "Oh my God, would I love to experience that with my child? Like just with my teenager, like just to be able to laugh and laugh and laugh." And we just held each other and talked about how much we loved each other and how lucky we were, and it was really precious. And then something shifted, and my daughter and I took a smaller amount because I was watching her, and she wanted to even go up for a second helping. And I said, well, I don't know, don't take too much. But she went up and had another second helping. So she was going deeper than me. And then she, all of a sudden, I look over and she's starting to cry. Tears are starting to roll down
Wow.
her face. I said, what's up, babe? And she said, I don't know, Mom, I don't know. And then she just went into this really dark thing where she just cried for 2 or 3 more hours nonstop. She just cried and cried and cried. And I held her, and I just rocked her and held her, and I just straightened up like right away, because I was a mom first. And I loved her, and I held her, and she cried and cried. And she actually went through a full rebirthing. She saw herself in like being squeezed. She felt herself compressed, super squeezed. And she had a very tough birth. I had a 56-hour labor with her, and she almost died at birth. Um, she came out, those cone heads that used to be, she came out with a head that went way up like this, like with but our just felt it fit on the little cone on the way on the top, because her head was so squished from being in the birth canal so long. Yeah, we almost lost her, and so she went through a rebirthing, and she came out and like tabla rasa, not remembering anything. She just knew I was her mom. That was the end. She looked at me and she knew I was her mom, but she had no other memories at first.
Wow.
And
That's
it was
crazy.
incredible. And after that, like she was just like kind of in shock the rest of the day, like kind of, when you've cried a lot, you're exhausted. She was just wiped, and they were trying to get her up to dance and stuff, both of us. And I didn't like that aspect. It felt a bit too controlled, the Santa Dame ceremony, in my humble opinion, because I was her mother and I saw what she just went through, and she just needed to be held and let to sleep and rest. And they kept bugging us to get up. But anyway, it was incredible. And at the same time that my daughter went through that, a baby gray whale was born in Kahana Beach in the bay right in front of us. So it was incredible, this birthing of a baby whale and my daughter rebirthing.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, my daughter started doing really well in school. She went to Quebec that summer to learn French. She went to Quebec every summer for the next few years and then moved there. And now she's finishing a degree in French language. Like, she's done so much with her life since then. It just opened up all these possibilities for her. And the friends that she was hanging out with, she moved away from, and she started going back to her old friends that were more balanced. And she graduated with decent marks, and it's just gone up for her. So it was incredible. Whereas I felt like I never, because I was taking care of my daughter, I had to go again. So I don't know if you want this whole thing to be about, but the next experience I had, I was by myself, and it was incredible. I went to another planet and I had conversations with God on a beach, on a beautiful beach, and it was just incredible.
Hold on. So basically, it's like a version of DMT. That's what it is. It's like a
Yeah,
Okay. I
but
never
it's
knew that.
very different from the
Okay.
smoked DMT, right? It's very different from like when you ingest it. And I've heard that there's a big difference between snorting it and smoking it, that the snorting is much better. It's just hard to get the kind of DMT where you can snort it, I've heard. But with the smoking, it's like what, 10-15 minutes you're high, maybe 20. And it's super intense and you're in another world. With this, you're in your own world,
Okay.
right?
So this you eat. Yeah, this is like a
Yeah,
concoction
you
that they
drink
make.
it. You
Okay,
drink it.
drink it. Okay.
And it's because of that the MAO inhibitor, that it's able to affect you the
For
way it
longer. Wow.
does. But the
Wow.
journey lasts for 8 hours. Like, it's not 6 hours anyway. It's very intense.
That sounds very intense indeed.
It's almost like the way that I think of it, it's almost like everything has consciousness. And so this medicine has the consciousness of Mother Earth, and it mixes with our own consciousness, our own higher self. And it feels like a snake when it starts to go through your body, like it's looking for where, if you had a broken leg, you'll feel some energy around where you broke the leg.
Mm.
You'll feel it move through your body, and like it's working in areas where you've hurt yourself. Incredible intelligence. And it will, I believe it figures out what you need most, because every single journey is different. In Peru, I'll just to kind of wrap up about the ayahuasca. In Peru, it was very dark for me. Every single journey, I took the maximum amount they would give us, because I wanted to heal this. I was only there for a week at this retreat center, and I wanted to make sure I wanted to leave this behind me. And I was incredibly sick, like physically sick, not just the nausea, my back was incredible pain. My whole body was just racked with pain. And in the midst of this, and I felt like I was drowning in a sea of agony. And it was like black, like I was drowning in this black quicksand. Everything was black, 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 black. No psychedelic lights, no beauty, nothing. It was just like, oh. And what it felt like looking back is that I went into all the shame that I'd carried my whole life. And I had to feel the intensity of the pain and the shame. And maybe I even did some ancestral healing. I don't know. But it was really dark. And then my last journey there, again, I took the heroic dose, and it was changed. I started seeing these bright lights. And I was going, oh, good, I'm not going into the black quicksand this time, you know. And I started seeing more color, and it wasn't as painful. And then my power animal flew up to me again without me calling him, just boom, came into the picture. And then I had this vision of me carrying this massive ball and chain over my back, and the ball was almost as big as my body was, and I was hunched over, and I could still feel all this incredible pain in my back. I was in had a lot of back pain when I was in Peru. And the horse flew up to me, grabbed the chain and the ball in his teeth, flung it up over his back, and then flew off, and then bucked this ball up into the air. And the ball broke into a million pieces that turned into psychedelic colors and swirled, and then they turned into a carnival.
Okay.
At first it was like fireworks, and then it was like a carnival, a Ferris wheel started, and then a carnival, and it was all of a sudden a celebration. And then all my power animals came in, and my spirit guides, and Mother Teresa, and Jesus, and everybody was celebrating. And from the moment that ball burst, my back pain disappeared, and I knew my depression was gone forever.
Do you know what that? Okay, I guess it was depression, but I guess it was kind of the pain body that you were carrying with you.
Yes,
All the.
exactly. The pain body, the shame. Yes, the agony of lifetimes. I don't know. But
Okay.
my life has been very different since then. And it's been very hard because it's been walking absolute authenticity in every step. And that is not easy. People don't like it when you go from being someone who's nice to everyone to someone who speaks the truth all the time. I
Well,
try still to be nice
yeah.
with the truth, but
It
I'm a
is.
truth speaker.
It is tough to speak the truth, especially when it goes against the mainstream stuff, and we'll get into that a
Totally.
little bit. But I want to talk about, first of all, meditation, the importance of
Sure.
meditation you mentioned earlier, um,
Absolutely.
and also compare meditation with prayer. Like,
Okay.
ideally, I think people should do both. But why do you think, first of all, people should meditate daily?
If you even go one day with missing meditation, it's harder to get into the zone where you're home, where you merge with the Godhead and you're just at peace. And so the longer it takes to quiet the thoughts and to sink deeper and deeper and deeper into deeper levels of yourself, where you find that zone of pure peace, pure bliss, pure contentment, Satchitananda, um, then that much longer it's going to take. So sometimes if I've been really busy and haven't been able to meditate for 2 days or something, it takes me a little longer. If for some reason I've been on a holiday and it's been a while, I might not get to that place where I feel like I'm home. And it might be, especially if something traumatic has happened or it's super busy, I might have more thoughts and I just have to keep breathing and surrendering them. The reason I think meditation is far more important than prayer is because I believe that everything that comes to us in life is a gift. And often prayer is asking for things. And I think the only prayer that we need is thank you. And simple things like help me to let go, help me to surrender, but not give me this, give me that.
Right, right. Okay, that's
Um,
outlining, as they call it, outlining what do you want.
yeah,
But I,
absolutely. I
what?
think concession too, praying for others, I think is very powerful.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, but I use envisioning too. Like I will see like all these human trafficked children, and I was doing that in the wee hours this morning up in my meditation and sending a lot of light to these children. Um,
Why? So you're projecting out what you want to the world. I
yeah,
think that's a positive prayer. And
yeah.
also, what about people that pray? What is God's will for me? I think that's a prayer that I find very interesting, and use try to use more often in my day because.
Well, this is the beauty of meditation is that it puts you into God's will. There's no question.
Hmm.
When you meditate and you go home, it is so clear the alignment. You absolutely know when you're stepping out of God's will in a way that you just don't get if you're not meditating. So it is why you meditate, to become aligned, to walk the hero's journey.
Hmm. Well, let's switch gears and talk about the worldly affairs. This year has been really very strange. And I remember in March, I was really attacked by a guy I thought was my friend. And I was basically said, why don't we stop this talk about lockdowns and just take supplements like vitamin D and stuff, take care of ourselves. And if you're really vulnerable, go into a lockdown yourself, but don't impose this on a wide scale. And I was accused of being a sociopath and this and that, and I really because at the time I kind of valued the opinion of this person, so it really kind of hurt me.
Sure. Yeah,
So what do you think about the I guess it let me backtrack. And I think in a way it helped the world because people were faced with themselves for long periods of time. They didn't have to go to work for a while and all that. So from that point of view, it was beneficial. But I think the longer it goes on, the more destructive it will be, I think.
I
So,
agree. I agree.
right,
Without question. Without question. I think there's always hidden gems in everything. There's ways of finding silver linings. And it's interesting how, as COVID hit, the consciousness on the planet has been rising for some time. And the people that run the planet, that are above the presidents and the government, they have seen this, and it's like a last ditch effort to maintain control of the earth and keep all their dark secrets secret. There's many people who don't want to see what is really going on, and the mainstream media has been very effective at brainwashing us since we were kids. Like when I was a child, we were afraid of the Russians. We were afraid of Russians because Walter Cronkite, who was the main newscast, quoted the most trusted man in America in the
right.
70s. He was part of the CIA, and he was our main anchorman, and he just, in a really lovely way, just like lovely Bonnie Henry that we have here in the province I live in. She speaks calm and she looks so concerned, but she's it's not the truth that she's speaking. And she's basically just a hand puppet of the elite that are getting her to control. Like there's a lot of scientists and doctors and politicians that are stepping up now and saying no more. This has
Right.
gone way too long. This is not, that they really see what's going on. Like in an hour after we're finished, I'm heading downtown to a rally in Vancouver, BC, where I live, for no lockdowns, no masks, And the fellow who sings Canada's anthem here in Vancouver at all the big hockey games, who's a you know, really big star, beautiful singer. He said that he would sing "Oh Canada" at the
Wow.
opening of this rally, and so they fired him. Like he's been the main singer, and of course it's publicized. It's just fear mongering. Like if you do that, we'll make your life miserable. And I'm sure they'll have face recognition stuff down there. And I don't like that. My parents, the last time I was at a rally, I was on the front page of the paper, and I mean, because I was in the front row, like a keener, because I really think it's important that we hear the facts, and the censoring is incredible.
The
It's
censoring on Facebook has been just incessant. They even
terrible.
censor Trump every tweet he posted. Like on the election day,
Yeah,
this might be misinformation or something like that. It was really truly stunning
yeah,
the lengths they go
absolutely.
to. But I think going back to Cronkite, it seems that journalism has become worse. Cronkite compared to Cronkite, journalists of today are overly partisan. They are just outward, like just they overt hacks. A lot of them compared to Cronkite. Cronkite
I
was
think I think it was still pretty bad back then. This brainwashing that they do It is a version of MK Ultra that they put their CIA agents through, and others. They've used that to destroy the lives of many. But I think it might be worse because it's more widespread, and
Yeah.
it's a bigger addiction for people. There's a lot of people that don't get off their phones or the computer or the television or whatever. They're always plugged in, and it's always mainstream. And so their opinions are made for them. But the government uses propaganda, and they use it very effectively. Like, I think I just did a post on The Social Dilemma, that movie and history and propaganda, because that movie showed some really accurate things. At first it showed the effects of social media, the bullying, the addiction, all these negative aspects of it. But then it builds it up. You start to fall in love with this incredible family, family values. They love each other. They're mixed racial family. They do it all perfect so that everybody fits in and everybody loves this family, right? And
Mhm.
then and they look like they were a family that was maybe a second marriage, because some of the kids were Caucasian, some were not. um, and then they show the kids getting stuck in a hostile protest that's violent, and they build the energy going forward, and at the end, and it shows these nervous whistleblowers as well. That's huge, because you think, oh my god, what are they going to talk about? And you get all kind of excited that we're going to find out some stuff, and they start divulging stuff that's really serious and really true. And like, it's stuff we need to know. But then at the end they wrap it up by saying, this is, without censoring, it will bring a civil war. And by the end of the movie, you believe that. You believe that we need to lose our freedom of speech. Losing a freedom of speech is communism.
Right.
It is the biggest type of communism, and that is what we're facing globally. It's
Wow. So this is
scary.
the movie I was recommended and said it's a good documentary, but it sounds like
It is a good documentary,
it's still
but it
throwing in with
also
them.
lots of propaganda to warp your mind towards believing in censoring, believing in losing freedom of speech, and into being scared of rallies, scared of protests. Don't go to those. Look what happened to those kids on the movie,
Right.
right?
Well,
So it forms your opinions.
like a year ago or so, I was watching Slovenian TV because this is where I'm from, and I'm currently here in Slovenia. And I was watching it, and there was just seemed like an innocent program, and for about 5 minutes, kids were talking about how hate speech is wrong, how people shouldn't do hate speech, and this and that. And I'm thinking to myself, but they don't even cite an example. They're just saying blanket hate speech. So this is a slippery slope. You can say this is the anti-Mill. You know that John Stuart Mill, the philosopher, he was saying that people need to debate ideas, because if you say something's verboten, then you exclude some ideas from it. He said a clash of ideas will be good, because who are you? Are you the absolute to say that something is absolutely wrong? You can't be like that. Like, obviously in today's discourse, we see the effects of Nazism and all that, but like things like COVID and all that, these are not black and white things. These are discussable things, and the mainstream media it's censoring, and that is wrong, if not even evil, I think.
I agree. I don't think anything should be censored. If you censor, for example, say you censor hate speech, that's a good example. We see somebody doing that, we know we don't want anything to do with that person, or those people. And yet it's important to see the darkness and to understand, well, why. Like, I love this one woman did incredible documentary on hate speech, and she wanted to get to know the people that were there. And all of them had been psychologically affected by their parents, and their lives, and it had all started in childhood, and was passed on. And everybody is an innocent child of God doing the best they can, but the more trauma someone gets, the more they can get pulled into the dark path. Like, that thing about the white wolf and the dark wolf, which one is more powerful? Well, the
Right.
one feed, that's very true. That is very true. It's in our genetics. So if we feed ourselves with dark music and dark propaganda and dark pornography and dark, we will become dark. There's just absolutely
Right.
no question.
I think that's what happens with a lot of Antifa people and some Black Lives Matter, the organization, I mean, is that
Yeah,
those people don't have their lives in order, and they're using, it's like a relief. You get part of a group and you get to project your hate onto somebody else and you feel justified. There was a Black Lives Matter woman in Chicago that was saying, she was justifying looting, and she was saying it's reparations. The amount of like, they're just rationalizing theft. They're rationalizing crime, basically. That's what it is, and they feel good about it too. That's just anyway. I want to touch upon the vaccines. The vaccines may be coming. I'm not a big fan. I understand you have a position about the vaccines as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely not a fan.
Okay.
The vaccines have been proven to have nanoparticles, which can cross the blood-brain barrier, making people very easy to control. It will essentially turn people into artificial intelligence. It will also cut their source connection.
Really? Are you 100% sure about this?
Well, nobody's 100% sure on anything, but from the research I've done, um, they will they'll be programmed. They'll be completely programmed.
Or do you think they'll be more susceptible then after they get the vaccine, that somehow they'll be able
Oh,
to?
totally,
Okay.
totally. In fact, I've also heard that it will cut their ability to feel their emotions fully. So they're basically a psychopath. They're a walking controlled artificial, like this is where it's looking. And these are lots of scientists that are talking about this. Of course, most of it. Dr. Carrie Madev is a good one to plug into. Christian Northrup. These are doctors that have studied vaccines for years. Yeah, it's really really bad.
Back before, when you said somebody's controlling, who do you think is controlling the United States, if not the government? Do you think that the deep state, the bureaucracy is controlling it,
No,
or?
I'm not a QAnon follower so much. The way I see it is that there are negative high frequency beings that have been in touch with humanity for millennia. But they've really taken on a connection with the Rockefeller families, the Rothschilds, the a lot of these, like going back hundreds of years now. I mean, Hitler was very much involved with their influence. They received a lot of high technology. Like there's been a trade. They've given them these negative high frequency beings, mostly off planet, but they essentially, we were all like, this is getting pretty crazy. Oh, like take what you want, leave the rest. But we were created as human beings. We were genetically spliced and made from a few different beings, you
You mean
know,
by aliens?
by aliens. Yes. And it was not meant to be this nefarious thing at first. But one of them was to make us more susceptible to becoming slave-like and following authority, and not be standing up for ourselves and in our real true sovereignty.
Hmm.
So there is some of that influence as well. But the main thing is that these negative high frequency beings love fear. They actually feed on fear. And that all the human trafficking stuff feeds into that. It's actually really, really sick and really awful. And you can learn a lot of this online. And I'm not going
Right,
to,
right, right.
but what they've done is they very much, the people that, like, I talked about the black wolf and the white wolf. Well, a
Yep.
lot of these people that are behind the presidents, they're the corporatocracy. They own everything in the world. They're the ones that force wars. They're the ones that own the big corporations. big oil, Monsanto, all that. There is so much darkness. You
Mm.
know, can't do things like, you know, kill children and abuse children and not be,
Pedophilia and all that that's connected to
yes,
that.
and
Yeah.
not be affected deeply, and then have more of this drive to take more power and to be more ruthless,
Mm.
and eventually you continue down that path, you will lose your source connection and you move more into the need to destroy.
Right.
And so there is, unfortunately, there are some shadow controllers who are that are semi-human. Got beautiful birds out here, that are semi-human, that are controlled by these negative high frequency beings. And those shadow controllers are like these super rich families. Those are the ones we know about. They're hybrids. They're half, I call them hybrids because they've really lost their source connection, their desire to be beautiful, loving souls on the earth, because of so much darkness that they've
Right. Right.
at some point cut that off, I'm sure, and get down on their knees and try to
Mm.
start again and get honest. But their inability to be honest with themselves and others, and their inability to give up their incredible wealth, or to share, or to, you know, I mean, most of them will, they'll destroy themselves in the long
Right.
run, you
I
know. And
I tend to see it more more as a simple like good versus evil. I believe there's a lot of you know, power corrupts. So when these bureaucrats have a lot of power, they just latch onto it. They don't want to let go. And I think
I,
that's my
I
simple view of it. That
yeah, well, it is sort of true, but it's more of a trauma thing. It's more of, the more trauma you have, the more
right,
you need power. It's actually not about good or evil. It's really about power at the basic level. And they are so thirsty for more and more and
right.
more,
Is okay. Let's
because of the lost power as children. And they will just, and actually, when they take the life of a child or abuse a child, they feel the powerlessness, and it makes them feel more powerful. So it's a really sick way that they
right.
do that. And yeah,
Uh,
like, the trafficking thing is way worse than people realize.
so I'm gonna tie Trump into this because Trump has been well known to be very anti the human trafficking and pedophilia and all that. He's be actively more prosecuting people than I think Obama ever did.
Oh yeah, Obama was in on it, unfortunately. I mean, I don't know if he was into human trafficking, but he signed orders for children to come to these parties of these guys. Like, he paid taxpayer dollars out to bring children in to entertain. You
Really?
know, is not innocent. He's not
Do
as
you,
bad as Clinton's, I don't think, but he's certainly not innocent.
right? Do you think that will come out like in the near future?
Trump is actually done some really good things. Like, I know people hate them because they watch mainstream,
Yeah,
and
that's it.
their opinions have been formed by mainstream media. They spin everything Trump says. They hide everything good he does. Fox News is a little more open. They show more of what Trump says and
Right.
does, because it's
But
more of a Republican channel. But I am not Republican, and I am not, a super Trump supporter, but I have just watched what he's done. And he's done some incredible things. And what I've heard through inside intel is that the reason he wanted to put the wall up is not because of rapists. That's the way they spun it. Oh, the Mexican people are horrible. It was not about racism. It's because the United States has more human trafficking than anywhere else in the world. And most of the children come up from the south border, and they're brought up through Mexico, through from South America and other places.
right. I,
So, like 10,000 children brought into the States every year for
I
human
think
trafficking.
I think that was definitely part of it. But part of it was the problem of not ever curbing illegal immigration. But part of it was that as well. They can do whatever they want if their
Yeah,
borders open, right?
absolutely. It was both. It was both, but people don't understand that all of what's going on right now is to expose the darkness and the human trafficking. Like that is a big part, because the human trafficking is their primary business. They make $1 trillion, trillions off this human. A little child can have 10, 12 tricks in a day.
Right.
And then when they get ill and sick from this horrible thing, and they just take them out, they sell them to the next bidder who wants to kill them. You know, it's really bad.
Do you think they have a role in it, in the election, the meddling, and because there's been a lot of fraud, but the mainstream media is not covering any of it.
Oh,
So,
it'll come out. It'll come out. There's been a lot of fraud. Trump will get in, I believe.
do you think by the end of the month he'll get in?
No, I believe probably by the end of January, we'll have a lot of information. I think this month, the way it's set up, even astrologically, it's going to be a rocky month. I don't
Yeah.
think we're going to see that kind of stuff till next month. We'll see more and more and more, especially people like you and I that are more on the awake end. I don't like to use that term because some people feel like it's not fair, you know, to call some awake, but there's, I mean, the stuff that I've been talking about, the average person is just going to think I'm crazy, you
Right.
know,
Well,
but
they
let them,
watch
because
CNN
truth comes out eventually.
because they watch BBC or CNN, and the rest that's not on
Yeah,
that is not real. Is not real. And even Fox
absolutely.
News has been. They have some horrible people on there. Wallace. I don't know if you watched the debate.
I don't watch mainstream, so
Wallace was very favorable towards Biden, and he was hammering Trump. He's not. He pretends to be unbiased, but he's really a Democrat. Chris Wallace. Don't like that guy. Anyway,
I
that's my
heard
rant.
stuff about Chris Wallace, but I never watched it, so I don't know. But
Right.
uh,
Okay. Let's.
mainstream news hardly at all.
Right. So let's end on a positive note. So in this
Okay.
environment that we are in today, what can people do? I guess you will say probably meditate,
Well,
right?
well, meditate, but no, like truly connect, like connect deeply. There are so many people that are waking up at this time, and there are groups of us that are coming online and connecting online. And you know what? I don't buy the lockdown. Get some hugs, see people. Like I'm heartbroken. My parents haven't been willing to, you know, see us kids, and they're so afraid of COVID, and it's so sad because it's just a bad flu, and they've made it into this pandemic, which it's not. It's really a global power grab. So what people can do is they can meditate, they can exercise, they can eat healthy, they can get out in nature, grab a tree, hug a tree, take vitamins, lots of vitamin C, D, zinc. That's going to help you fight COVID. Um, Eat lots of fresh foods. You know, vegan foods are healthiest. Just because of unless you can get like hunt or get really tampered meat, the amount of pesticides and stuff, and
Right, right.
the fear energy in the animals that you're taking in. So
You can
yeah,
bless your food.
do all those good things and just love themselves, like realize that this is not the end of this is not the end of like the world. What is
Right.
happening right now is the rising of consciousness, and so through the law of entrainment, which means that no two vibrations can coexist at opposite levels, they've got to come together. So, and what happens is the darkness comes up. So we're seeing all this darkness, and we have to see it, we have to witness it, we have to go, oh my God, there is a huge human trafficking thing, all these missing children. Like, you know, we need to know the truth, and we need to feel it, feel the awfulness of it, and then forgive. Believe it or not, we're even going to need to forgive these shadow controllers and these
Right.
leaders and these horrible people down the road. But first of all, we got to feel it and heal it. So we've got to do, like, we can't plug into videos 24/7 and feel good, like the hard to hear videos. We have to unplug from social media, unplug from TV and stuff. Sometimes we have to get in nature. We have to see people who are real and that really honor us. And above all, we have to be authentic. We have to align with our own higher self and be true to that. And if somebody is saying something like, oh, I can't wait for the vaccine, and we don't agree with it, we need to say that could be a very dangerous vaccine, and just leave
Yeah.
it there. Say it calmly, stand in our power, be humble, do not argue, or you're going down to their vibrational level. Just say, I would rather go to jail than take the vaccine. State our truth, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And if they want more details, they can ask, just tell them, like at one point I was sending a lot of people videos and stuff because I was so alarmed in March and early April when I realized, oh my God, this is it. This is what's going down. I've been expecting this for decades.
Hmm.
That I started sending some friends, and I blew away some friends in my
As
family.
you
My
do.
family's very patient. They just delete. Oh, there's Jane and her radical ideas.
Right.
Um, you know, some people asked me to stop, so I did. And now I ask people, let me know if you want this stuff, and I'm better about that.
Right.
But yeah, we have to find things that raise our vibration. Service to others, that's another really big one. Make a big pot of soup and take it to someone sick. Um, don't worry so much about COVID unless you're really at risk. Go to the rallies or support the petitions. Like honestly, we do not need to fight, do not argue, do not get into anything violent. This is a non-violent movement of standing in our sovereignty, of following our souls, of following God's will, of doing the right thing in every moment. And that is what will take us to the higher dimensions that we're moving into and bring about the beautiful new world that we are creating.
Yeah, beautiful. I think the late Dr. Hawkins said, David Hawkins said that evolution brings revolution. So
Yeah,
as the consciousness is going up, the evolution of it brings about revolution because it unstabilizes the negativity and then it brings it up to the surface. And I think that's what we're
exactly.
seeing now with Antifa and the lockdowns and everything. It's just bringing out the cultural Marxism and the totalitarian tendencies of some people in the government, definitely. So,
Exactly. Exactly. And the darkness will dissipate. It will dissolve. It will burn itself out as we witness it and as we hold that higher consciousness. And
okay.
just send light to all of it. Send light to the children, send light to the leaders, send light to the shadow controllers, and just do our best to step into our higher self.
So, if people want to contact you for a healing session, where can they find you?
Find me, Janeta Jane Transformations on Facebook. That's the
Okay.
best.
I'll
So
link it under the video.
Janeta. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So my Facebook page is the best place to reach
Okay.
me.
And what kind of sessions do you offer? Just so they know.
Um, I do a lot of stuff. It goes into a lot of detail on that page. For me, it's often intuitive. Somebody will tell me what's going on, and I will take them into, sometimes I'll take them into the last trigger they had, and I'll teach them how to process emotion. Everything is different. I really get intuitive guidelines on how to work with people, and then I just do. Some people need more physical, nutritional. Most people, it's far deeper than that.
Right.
The spiritual, psychological, emotional healing.
Okay. So yeah, obviously they need some time to remove the trauma. That it's not just a quick session for some people. Probably needs a bit more work and meditation and so forth.
It's a journey. Like you can have one session can do a ton of good, but if you're not meditating and you're still being dishonest and lying to people. Liars don't heal. Carolyn Miss talked about that.
Right.
You have to really make a choice to follow the white wolf, and that keeps you healthy, that keeps you well, that
Hmm.
puts you on the path you need to be on. So it's a journey for all of us to become our best self.
It's kind of the parallel for the Matrix. Follow the right rabbit. And
Yeah, there you go.
all right. Well,
Okay.
thank you so much for being on my podcast, Janeta Jane,
Oh, my
everybody.
pleasure. My pleasure,
and
Matjaz.
and thank you everybody for watching this or listening to this. Thank you very much.
Okay. Have a great day.